Hello, hello.
Hi, how's it going?
Oh, hey.
There we go.
It said my mic wasn't working, so I was testing it.
Oh no.
I'm not on camera, am I? All right, hold on. Maybe if I turn it on,
There we
there we
go.
go.
Yeah,
Too dark.
that's all right.
Have you talked to Kyle?
Actually, no, I haven't. Yeah, he was in the meeting this morning.
Oh, he was. Oh, that's right. He came in late.
Yeah,
All right. God, my room is so dark. So he's doing it though, right? Tonight?
yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
All right. Oakley dokley. That's me. Got it. I'll need to stop the recording. Oh, it's just automatic. Damn it. Pause record. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yay. Hi, everybody. It looks like we do have a quorum. So I'm going to go ahead and get the meeting to order. I'm Barb Boschert. I'm the Community Involvement Coordinator, as you guys know, for Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. This meeting is being recorded, just so everybody knows. This is the Cooper and Commerce WQARF Community Advisory Board meeting. So if we can start with introductions. Hold on, let me pull the agenda back up. Okay. And why don't we, let's see. Why don't we go ahead and start with introductions with the ADQ people? I just introduced myself. First thing on the agenda is the call to order and the introductions. Kyle, Adam, and Tom, the ADQ people, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Right, I'll kick it off because I hit unmute first. My name's Kyle Johnson. I think most of you, well, everyone on the cab probably knows me. I've been the project manager for Cooper and Commerce for the last about 7 years, I believe. And I'm a senior engineer with ADEQ, and I will be giving you a presentation about the site this evening. Thanks.
Awesome. Adam?
Yeah, hi, I'm Adam Nagel. I'm a project manager with ADQ. I'm a hydrogeologist. Just started about 7 months ago, and I'll be taking over Cooper and Commerce from Kyle as project manager for it. So nice meeting you all.
And it looks like we have the big boss, Tom, here. Tom, are you on?
Yeah, Tom Titus, not the big boss, just the middle manager. I'm the remedial projects unit manager. So I'm basically Adam and Barb's boss. I guess Kyle's too.
Kyle, too, yeah.
Good to be here.
Thanks. And then we have our cab. It looks like we just have our cab members here, which is awesome. So glad you guys are here. Why don't you guys just do a quick intro of yourselves? We can start. I'm going to go down the list. We can start with Carrie.
I'm here. I'm Carrie Lewis. Been on CAB since the beginning.
Yep. Bruce?
Trying to find where the mute button is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Bruce, CAB member. Been a member for, I don't know, 8-10 years, quite a while.
Awesome. And Eric?
I couldn't hear Eric. I don't know if anyone else could.
Maybe he's muted. It's all right. We know he's here.
Let's try that now.
Okay.
Yes.
You there?
No? Yes. Is that
Yeah,
working?
we can hear you.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm Eric Brown. I am with the CAB and I am with the town of Gilbert as well.
Great. Thanks. Mike,
Hi, Mike Evans. I've been doing this for maybe 15 years now, 18 years, since 2006. Was the co-chair of the cab. I don't know if that still holds.
that's for now. And Pacer?
All right, here I am. Almost as long as Mike. He was probably there at the meeting when it first kicked off before me, so maybe I'm like 5 minutes behind him. But been a co-chair as well, I think, for most of the times.
All righty, and that looks like all of the cab members that are present right now. If I missed anybody, let me know. Any member of the public that's online that would like to introduce themselves, feel free to do that right now. You don't have to. Okay. Okay, so the first thing on the agenda is to approve the minutes of our last meeting, which was in September of 2021. Did you guys get a chance to look at those minutes that I sent you, that I emailed? Let me see if I can pull those up. Share those. Here we go. These were the minutes of the last meeting. Does anybody have anything they want to discuss about the minutes or revisions they would like to make or comments? Nothing?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay, if you guys want to approve the minutes, then we would need a motion and a second and a vote. Does anybody want to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I
I make a
Motion to approve. I'll
I
second
seconded
that.
it.
All approved.
Okay. And let's take a vote. Everybody in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Okay.
We're not going to dispute minutes that are 2 years old.
Yeah, I know. Okay.
Remember Carrie say it. No, I'm just teasing.
The next thing on the agenda is Kyle's presentation on Cooper Road, Cooper and Commerce. So I will let Kyle take over the screen.
Right. I took over screen share and it moved where the mute button was. But as you can tell, I found it. All right. Well, hi everybody. It's been a long time since I've seen your faces, but glad to see y'all again. So I'll just jump right in and get this presentation going. We're going to take a gander at the existing groundwater conditions today, and then talk about some of our plans for the future, as well as how the soil vapor extraction system's doing. But first, as always, we have our mandatory WQARF process slide. I'll be real brief with this, but this is an outline of the WQARF process. I'm sure you guys are familiar with it. I've shown it to you every time I've given a presentation. We are currently at the O&M stage of the process, which means we've implemented our remedy. We are now operating and maintaining our remedy, which is soil vapor extraction and groundwater monitoring. All right, so as I said before, we're looking at the groundwater conditions, the soil vapor extraction system, and then some of our upcoming plans here. So starting with groundwater, we just conducted an event recently, 18 wells sampled, which is a limited selection from the total amount of wells we have at the site. It's been pared back to save money and emphasize just maintaining the boundary, as well as understanding where the hot spots of the plume are. And there's the results. I won't read this off to you, but generally we're as far as these things go, very low on the concentration end of things. And that's the highest we have at the site is 22 micrograms per liter. And I'll show you right where that is on an upcoming slide. Groundwater flow direction is about the same as it has been for the last decade. It's flowing to the west-northwest. And our source area where the release initially happened was down here. Groundwater is moving this direction. Plume shape is also remarkably similar to what we've seen over the last probably 5 years or so. We have our source area again, and then a small trail that sometimes is connected and sometimes not. We call it a detached plume when it's not connected to the source here. But about the same aerial footprint as we've seen in the past, about the same magnitude of concentration as well. The high being 22, which you'll find right here in the source area, this little cluster of red wells. I'll see, I guess I can zoom in. It's right down in that area. So last time we spoke, we discussed switching to a pulse operation for the soil vapor extraction system, and that has been done. And the way we're running it right now is like 10-day periods, like a little over a week, and we do it twice a year. And we're doing that as opposed to running it 24/7, 365 days a year, and we're saving a boatload of money. Probably pushing towards $100,000 a year we're saving by doing this. And we're also maintaining control of the soil vapor cloud that's kind of down there in the ground, and we're keeping it from getting into the water as much as possible, as well as from traveling up towards where people walk around and you'd have an exposure issue. So if you recall that last presentation, we kind of went over this whole plan, and I'd like to say we've done it, and it appears to be successful. Here's our schedule for the most recent run times there. So here's a visual representation. This is busy. I'll walk you through it real quick here, but this is what the concentrations are doing since we've started that pulse operation since our previous meeting. Our previous meeting would have been in 2021, so we're looking somewhere around in this time, I think, is when we met last. And so we've started running this pulse operation. The pulses are these little areas right here. Pulse, pulse, pulse. So the goal is to get this pulse to go to, we want to see these colors drag down. That's the concentration going down here. And do realize this is a logarithmic scale on this y-axis of the chart. So what that means is when you see a little movement up here, that's the equivalent of down lower on the chart, a move that goes all the way down. You're seeing it's all done by orders of magnitude. So a small shift is actually pretty tremendous when it's up high on the chart. So what you see is this orange one is our hottest well, our hottest point out there at that soil vapor cloud. And we're pretty successfully dragging it down real low each time we run this thing. So that's kind of a demonstration of the success of this method. So we're going to keep doing this because we like the results we're seeing here. So that brings us to the last section. I don't know if it's good or bad, but a very short presentation. So this is kind of what we're looking at doing this year. We are going to do two things that are kind of out of the norm, you know, a little beyond our regular SVE and groundwater monitoring. Both of those have to do with the groundwater itself. We are going to install an additional groundwater monitoring well, and we are going to do an expanded groundwater monitoring event. And I'll explain both of those real quick. I'll start with the expanded event. And just as a visual reference here, it's maybe a little tough to see, but there's a lot of wells on these figures that are grayed out. I don't know if you can see these here, this MW 107, 111, all these gray wells are wells that exist, but we don't monitor because historically the plume doesn't head that direction. There's no reason to, or we may have wells that are nearby that do the job. So there's no point in monitoring two wells that give you the same data. but we are going to go ahead and monitor all the wells this year. And we're doing that mostly just as a, I don't want to say a redundancy, but just a self-check to ensure that our pared down plan, the 18 wells we're currently monitoring, are still representing the entire site. So every few years we'll step back and we'll do this just to make sure nothing's slipping through the cracks and that us being efficient isn't allowing data to slide past us. So that'll be happening this fiscal year, and we'll be capturing every single well we can get our hands on. In addition to that, we're going to install one more ground. I'm sorry, Pacer, you got something? Yeah.
Is there wells on the west side or the northwest side that you're gonna check too, or?
Not really. We're gonna install one out there though, because we don't really have any out that way. So what we do have, so what we want to do is we want to make sure we got our eye on the downstream edge of the plume. We want to make sure it doesn't go running away and we miss it. Now it's super duper unlikely and the groundwater moves very slow, but it's still best practice to have some kind of infrastructure in place to keep an eye on that. So we have these two wells, one here, bottom left, top left. And those wells are kind of a screen to help make sure the plume never escapes our notice. But what you notice is we have a big, huge gap right through the middle where there is no well. And that's because this well was, when I put that in a few years ago, I intended it for it to be a sentinel well, one that sits there and is outside the plume and makes sure the plume doesn't pass us. But when I put it in, it was hot. So we discovered the plume already went past it a bit. So now we're going to go and try and get one in somewhere in this area, which will put it right splotch in the path of the plume. Excuse me. Apologize, I'm just getting over COVID. I escaped it. It's my first time, but no fever today. So pardon my voice. So that brings me to the next point, that additional well we're going to be throwing in. We're trying to just plug the space between these two wells and get one in somewhere in this area. If we can get one in anywhere in here, I'm confident we'll catch the plume because as you can see, it's a wide plume. This thing's a good, I think it's about pushing towards a mile wide. So that's
so Kyle,
yes,
have you already talked to the golf course and the homeowners out there at El Dorado?
Some. We have Samantha, she's just Sergeant. She just got married though. Her last name's O'Shea now. And she has been seeking access, mostly going through the county's website and the assessor's website to look at property ownership. We're gonna try and get something in public right of way because it tends to be much easier to do than to get access and an easement to someone's private property. Most private landowners don't want to hand easements to the government. So our goal is to find somewhere public in that area, which means we may be on the street here. But no, to answer your question, I have not spoken with the golf courses or the private lots yet. That'll be our second favoritist location to put a well in after public.
Well, just to keep in mind that golf course was designed for flood control, which is part of the reason why it has such steep areas of the course where it's not an easy course to play because of the flood control aspects of it.
Right. If we were to find a location on private property, we would probably seek somewhere along one of these roads in here. But if memory serves, when I was on the assessor's website, they are, I believe it's private roads. So again, that makes it tough. And your point with the golf courses are decent places for wells. You know, a lot of times they don't care if you have that infrastructure there. But when you describe this one as flood control, that makes it you don't ever want to put a well in a low spot, right? So yeah, that and getting your drill rig down a hill can be kind of difficult too. So yeah, our goal would be we'd shoot for the roads, but we're feeling that out. We should have that done before the end of this fiscal year, potentially before the end of the calendar year, depending on how quick we can get moving. But it's not an urgent thing. As I said, the groundwater doesn't move fast. And if we put it in, there's a chance we could find, as you see, we have very low, below standard concentrations, kind of barely above detection level there. And we will likely find something like that out here too, just due to the age and the dilute nature of this plume we're looking at.
Hey, on that light purple edge of the plume, some are dashed lines.
Inferred, correct.
Okay.
Yep. That's why we've got it dashed right through there, is because we don't have a well. It's kind of highlighting the gap in our data.
Kyle, can you go to the chart that shows the when you do the pulse testing there? Yeah. So we're looking at the units there. What is that, like 20 or 30,000?
More
Where it starts before pulse?
like in this area?
No, before pulse. We're like on the 11/20 of 2021, first pulse.
11/20/2000, right here.
Yeah.
So yep.
Yeah, just looking at the orange, that's let's see, 110, right?
Oh, I wish. Yeah, that is 110 shallow, 110S well, correct.
Okay,
and
so the units that we see on the graph and the units that we see here are quite different. I mean, we're seeing less than 20, but we're seeing 20,000 here.
Oh yes, between the map and this one. Yeah,
Yes.
there are two different media. This one you're looking at soil vapor concentrations. So this is the contaminants in between the soil molecules, right? The two molecules are like this. There's a little air, we call it a void space between them. Well, inside there's air and some moisture, and this is the contamination in between those soil molecules, but up above the water table. On the map, what you're seeing is the contaminant that's actually dissolved into our groundwater table. So what this is micrograms per meter cubed, and that's what we do for those the soil vapors in between the soil molecules. And then in the water, it's micrograms per liter. And what you're going to see here is, you're pushing up towards, I wish I'd put commas on here. I believe this one's 1 million if my eyes aren't deceiving me. So that's
Okay.
Get in there close to see. Yeah. Yep. 1 million. 1,100,000.
So it looks like the concentration levels are similar to what they were back in 2007. I mean,
yeah, so that's our
lower, but not a lot lower.
Yeah, so that's actually our goal, is to let him get as high as we can. So what we did during this long gap here, I don't know if you guys recall, I can actually pull it up if you want to look at it. Oh, maybe I can't because it's off agenda, but I could do the last presentation I gave, we kind of went over the methodology on what we're going to do with the soil vapor. So what we did is we just let it go for a long time, and we looked for where it kind of caps out. See how these curve, and they come to a point of diminishing returns, or they kind of get asymptotic here. They don't really have as much change. So we were looking for that number. So that's kind of the maximum concentration we're going to see in the soil vapor. So our goal is to shut down long enough that we get a nice boost. That's from here to here, a nice big increase, and then we suck it all back out. So we're trying to get we want to see big steep peaks is what we're looking for. And the peaks are kind of based off of this data we took right here.
Okay, so those locations that you're monitoring at 8, 9, and 10, those are away from where the vapor extraction is occurring, right? If you look
No, they're right there at the vapor extraction unit.
Okay, so when I look at the map, 8, 9, and 10 are
you
not
won't.
moving.
Yeah, they're not even on the map.
Okay, those are monitoring wells, and these are vapor.
These are soil vapor extraction wells. So these are actually, every one of those is tied into the system. It's actually each of the wells. It's actually these are the wells right here, and they all go down and into the ground in different places.
And these are at the site there near 102, 103.
That's correct. That is correct.
Okay. Is there any benefit to putting in I'm just asking, we see that the plume has moved. And I don't know if we look at the map where the 17 was, yeah, 120 monitoring well is where the plume is now. Does it
Yeah,
still
the
make
heart of
sense to vapor extract at the location when the plume has moved away?
it does. It does. The reason that there is a vapor cloud in the soil is because when the release happened initially, 50 years ago, when they spilled those chemicals, the chemicals percolated down through the dry soil until they got to the water. And then when they got to the water, they dissolved into it and flowed away. So the vapor cloud is caused by when the chemicals actually drug through that dry soil, and they saturate certain portions of it. Things like clays and silts get really loaded up with that chemical, and then they sit there and release it into the surrounding soil, kind of forming a cloud. So we sit there and we suck that cloud in. So there's actually probably there wouldn't be anything to clean out here.
Okay, so even
That's my
though
long
the
way.
concentration levels at the monitoring well 102 is the highest, right? 22 and the 120 is 17. The concentration levels are not that different, but they're still
Yeah,
significant
the
volume
vapor.
though.
Yeah, the vapor cloud doesn't really come off the groundwater. The groundwater is not causing a vapor cloud at this site. You can have that happen, and it does. Like the ground, but you're looking at your concentrations in the groundwater would probably be in like the high hundreds, the thousands, 5,000 micrograms per liter. That's, when you have high concentrations in groundwater, then yes, it will volatilize off of the surface of the groundwater table and create one of those clouds. But with 17 micrograms per liter and the water being 140 feet deep, or very deep, it's even if you put them in right at the surface of the groundwater, I wouldn't expect I wouldn't expect the laboratory to be able to even detect any vapors.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question for you, Kyle, and it's
Yeah.
relating to the volume or the number of pounds of contaminants that you've removed when you do these pulse events. Are you tracking that?
Yeah, I don't have it on me though. I can tell you this, it's not like a lot. When you pull out, like when you hear like 1,000,000 micrograms per liter or meter cubed, like when you translate that into a mass or a weight, it's like 1/100th of a pound kind of thing. It's the numbers sound big, but that's because we're doing micrograms per meter cubed.
I remember seeing at some point in the past you did have the graph of what was removed, and I think it had to do with both the pump and treat of the water, but also with the soil vapor extraction. And it was, I'm gonna draw with my finger, which is dangerous, right? It was kind of that asymptotic line again, right?
That's correct. Yep.
I think in the future that might be a helpful thing for us to see, just because when we're talking in logarithmic and micrograms, and it's very difficult for us to understand how effective and what, like, because I think a potential thought process is we should run it more often, and I think that a little bit more data would help us kind of understand how effective this is and how much we're dealing with at this point, which I think is honestly, to me, it's dealing with very little still in the soil in comparison to how much has been removed over time. And I think,
yes.
What was that?
Yes, you're correct.
Okay. So it is, I still am of the belief that this plan is still good. We need to keep doing the pulse, the pulse operation of it, because it seems to have an effect on the narrowness of the plume, keeping it narrow. It will, of course, over time spread out, and with the ultimate goal, attenuation, which is that's the goal.
That's correct. Yeah.
which is another a euphemism for dilution.
Yep.
But as long as we're all on that same page still, that that's the goal, and then it can be a little bit frightening to see the plume continue to grow, but eventually the numbers should start to come down even as it grows.
Yeah. And luckily I don't think we haven't seen it grow. The only thing I can think of, we have seen, so this R1 hovers right around the 5. When it's below 5, the plume looks a little narrower. When it's 4.8 or something like that. When it's above 5, the plume looks a little fatter. So we do get that, but mostly what we have seen when I got this site, the plume was this big. So the plume didn't actually grow. We just went out and put in wells and said, oh, I guess it's bigger than we thought it was, right? We just added data points. So that's, so it's not, we're not seeing a lot of growth, like concentration increase, right?
Mhm.
So that's a good thing. That's a good thing. But I do see what you're saying. Another thing I may reintroduce is this MW106. I've kicked around. Maybe we just start sampling this again. Mostly because if it's when it's below 5, which it frequently is, it makes it so the plume doesn't exist right here. You don't have an exceedance. It's purely a visual representation, but it might help people understand that this is kind of the big release. Most of what we've got back here is under control from the years of SVE and the pump and treat prior to that even.
Yeah,
So
those are interesting nuances. Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, but I'm with you for the mass removal, and I believe someone's been IMing me while I'm saying this. And I'm taking a wild guess that it's Adam, and he knows the answer. That he probably went and looked up the mass on how much was removed.
Still looking for it. Hang on.
Did you find it, Adam?
I'm still looking for it.
Oh, you're still looking. Okay.
I got you then.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Kyle, it leaves me to ask the question that I've asked several times with these last few meetings. You made the statement every few years having to check the all of the wells, which leads me to think that we're still talking about doing this for a lot of years. And after seeing those 4 times now of pulsing and seeing that there's a diminishment of the pulse each time, what are we talking about? How much longer are we talking about needing to do this for the state of Arizona?
Decades for the groundwater for this plume. The problem is we have I know of no technology that can go in and clean up what we have here. The problem is that the numbers are so small. 17 micrograms per liter is, I mean, I did the math on this a while ago, and I want to say it's like, oh God, it's not a lot. It was like a measurement of cups, like for baking, like cups per acre is how much you have down there dissolved. Like each acre has like a cup or 2 put in it, smeared over millions of gallons. So there's no way to get that out. You can't use if you were to inject like a chemical oxidant or a biological agent that would break it down, you couldn't even get those molecules to touch our contaminant molecules with any certainty, just due to how dilute and I guess on a molecular level far apart the contaminants are.
So to use Eric's term for attenuation and to have it be so dilute that we're not detecting it anymore, we're talking decades yet.
I would say decades.
And so how long, what is the, what is best practices for continuing to deal with a problem like this for both the town and the state to be assured that we're not leaving a problem for, as Pacer and I have joked about it a number of times, our children and our grandchildren.
So that is something the department's working on. We are evaluating, because this is not uncommon. This is like 95% of chlorinated solvent plumes in this state. They get to this situation where it's a low concentration, dilute plume, and there's not a lot you can do about it. So kind of in generalities, kind of the guidelines are, number one is receptor protection, and that is people's health. So you need to make sure that anywhere there's human exposure possible, that you have some kind of fail-safe to keep that exposure from happening in such a way that it's harmful. The easiest example of that would be a drinking water well, which we don't have in the vicinity here, which is a good thing. But that would be, a best practice in that case would be that the drinking water well undergoes sampling at some regular interval and has a sentinel well placed between the plume and it. So you have an early warning system to know if it's moving that way. You have a budget set aside to perhaps install a treatment system if it ever gets there, that kind of thing. For the long-term monitoring, efficiency is a lot of it. You need to look at what data is necessary and what's superfluous. And I kind of mentioned that earlier. We have a lot of wells out here. We only probably sample maybe just over half of the wells, about half the wells that actually exist in the area of the site. So you want to just pick out the wells that provide data that is needed to monitor the plume for a long time. That way you're not just throwing money at it, because that's a great way to lose the ability to do anything, is to blow your budget or be underfunded. So that's kind of the most general guidance I could give on something like that. Do it efficiently, and number one, make sure there's no exposure to humans.
So Kyle, based on the plume model that we see, can we estimate how much of that is not recoverable, meaning it's too far away from the vapor extraction to do anything?
Everything you see on here, I would call non-recoverable. The vapor extraction is keeping new stuff from going into the water.
And are we seeing additional? Are we getting something at the site still? I mean, we don't know what that mass is.
So that's a great question. We might be able to turn off the SVE system. I've been very hesitant to do so. But we could start testing it. The problem is, like I said, I don't want to, after spending all the time stopping the contaminants going from the soil to the groundwater using the SVE system, I'd hate to give anything up after doing it for a while. But it's actually, the SVE is more of a preventative thing. It can clean the surface of groundwater, mostly if you just have higher concentrations, though. These little bits we have, it's not really going to do a heck of a lot for that. It might do a tiny bit. But what it's doing is when the vapor cloud's created from the less porous soil media that has contaminants soaked into it, it starts emitting a vapor cloud. The soil vapor extraction system sucks that cloud up, runs it through a filter, and gets rid of it. So if the cloud just keeps going, then it'll eventually it comes in contact with the groundwater, and then it will actually dissolve into the groundwater. So that would be what we call an ongoing source. You'd have something continually feeding contaminants to the groundwater. Once they're in the water, they're mobile and they move downstream. So the SVE system prevents that from happening. So the trick is, the goal is to run it as cheaply as possible while still providing that protection.
I have kind of a follow-up on that. I followed everything you said about the soil vapor extraction is preventing additional contaminants from making its way to the groundwater.
Yes.
And therefore, I mean, we could kind of conceive of this plume as not growing as far as total contaminants that are being added to it. Growing in size, maybe, not total volume of contaminants, because we're operating the SVE. That's the preventative maintenance that you mentioned. The plan that was approved, I want to say at this point, maybe 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, I think 3 years ago. I think
3 years ago. I believe it had at least the first 5 years of operating the SVE, and then based on what happens during that 5-year period, the potential to operate it after that as well for another 5 years.
I believe it was another 5 years.
Okay, yeah. So I would lean towards let's keep operating it as the plan says, and then maybe in another year with a little bit more data, you can try to make a recommendation for what we should. I don't know if the CAB gets to weigh in on that and make a recommendation as far as the next 5 years, but I feel like we would want to weigh in on that. Whether or not that does anything is a different question, but I feel like let's go with the 5-year plan and then reassess after 3.5, 4 years. And
I can also assure you, even if we run it for that additional 5 years, and at the end of that 5 years, it still doesn't look good, then, Adam and I are just going to go amend the rod and say add another 5 years on it. I'm not gonna give up on it if there's still, until it meets the legal standards, this site will be a site. Yeah. That's kind of how it goes.
Well, that's what I wanted to say, right? I mean, I think if that's the site, if that's where it was introduced, and if we're saving money and we're running things cheaply, I just want to know that nothing else really is contributing to that plume, right? That like we cut it off, right? And so, because if the ultimate remedy, right, is, well, we just have to wait 3 decades for that plume to dissolve in the water and, and go down to whatever acceptable levels, right? I mean, that's all we're talking about, right? Is that, and so we're just monitoring to make sure where is it going, what's it doing. But we, it'd been different if we would have known about the spill 50 years ago and jumped right on it and dug out soil and did other things, right?
Yeah.
So I would want to run that, great if that's what it takes, and we're just running that and taking out whatever a little bit, and then we're just left with some. Essentially, it's like it's like you're blowing bubbles or something, right? You got this long thing, and then finally the bubble separates from the thing, and now we're just hoping, over time it's just going to dissipate, right? The one other comment I had is I realized this. So we were looking at this in like 2 dimensions, right? This map. What about depth-wise? Is there any sort of a map that could show us depth-wise?
I don't have a map per se, but I have a well pair that what we did is we I think it was 20. I did this at. We drilled through the contamination and just kept going until we found clean water. And so that's how we kind of got the depth and kind of did it in an area we felt would represent the deepest the contamination had gone, get enough time to move downstream. And
maybe just for the future, like it's almost like taking this map or, then, turning it on the x-axis, right? So we can kind of see, even if it was just something to kind of show with measurements, like here's where groundwater is, here's the depth of this. So it's not just.
I could make a little figure. I can't get you like a 3D. I mean, I could do a 3D model, but I feel like it would be a waste of taxpayers' money because they're so expensive. But I could do like a little cartoon that kind of shows you how deep
It's
it
just
is and
something
such.
I mean, that's tied to measurements, right? That's tied
Yes.
to this is the level of the
Gosh.
the drinking water. Here's here's where it is. Right?
Yeah. Adam, if you're listening right now, I have that I have all that information. I believe it's described in either the record of decision or the PRAP. It should give the depth of contamination, and if you can find that, it's I want to say it's about a 70. I'm going on memory, guys, but I want to say 70 feet is the approximate thickest portion of the plume, right?
Didn't we have a graph that showed that long time ago from the depth perceptive?
Yeah, I'm sure I made one. At least some kind of a visual. Yeah, I
Mike,
didn't.
do
I
you
guess maybe I
remember
should have.
that?
Yeah, I almost promise you it's in one of the old cab presentations.
Yeah,
That's
Carrie's
fine.
right.
We can look at it
I've
next
got
time.
it. Yeah, I think it'll be. I think if memory serves, it'll be this MW 120. It'll show a picture of the well and how it goes down past the water, and then the concentrations.
Along that.
Along that z-axis going down into the it won't be like an awesome picture. It'll just be like a 2D ant farm view of the soil kind of thing.
No, but it's just another way to look at it.
Yeah,
So we're not just thinking that this is on some like horizontal level, right? This plume is going, right?
Yeah, and that's an important thing to think about too, is I mean, I can't if this thing's 70 or even 100 feet thick, and then 3/4 of a square mile, how much water is that? That's probably billions of gallons.
Wow.
I could, it'd take me a few minutes, I could calc it out, but I'm just getting over COVID, guys. Don't make me do math tonight.
Can you update that for us?
How so? I'm sure I can. Just clarify what you're asking.
Showing us how deep it is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm taking notes. So some of the things that you guys want to see next time are, you're looking, we liked the cumulative mass removal chart. I think, Eric, you mentioned that one.
Yep.
That's for the SVD. Okay. And then I've got a profile view of the plume, and that'll show the kind of depth,
Yeah. Is it staying up to the top? Is it sinking farther down? What's going on with it?
Oh, as far as that goes, yeah, it's not going to move up and down much without an outside influence. So the contaminants, the PCE out there is heavier than water, so naturally it would want to sink, but you're not going to see a heck of a lot of sink in it, just because it's like water in it's water and soil, which gives it some buoyancy to go through.
It's not like we have a constant, water just soaking down in from the surface, right? Pushing it down, right? I mean, so it's just.
Yes, and that's the other way. So that's one of the outside influences. Yeah, if you've got like infiltration, if you got real shallow groundwater, right? I've worked in states where the groundwater is 5 feet down, and you got an infiltration basin, a golf course. Yeah, that'll push it down.
Fields
that'll shove it down. Yep, and then you get clean water on top. You can also get it from wells. Like if you have a drinking water well, extraction wells, they'll if they're screened way lower than the contamination, they're screened, they're pulling water down low, they'll pull the plume with the water. So that'll happen too. But you shouldn't see a heck of a lot of sinking, just due to the
It's staying around 140 feet. Is that right? The deep, is it 140 feet? It's in the deep.
I think the water's around 140. Well, I want to check my IMs because someone's probably answering a lot of my questions on them. But yeah, if memory serves, groundwater is around 120 to 140 feet to even hit groundwater here. And then the contaminant, the deepest we could find it was down. 210, maybe.
But
You
it's
know-
staying in the deep aquifer, right?
No, it's all relatively close to the surface. This contaminant doesn't go into the deep aquifer or a deeper aquifer.
And that's
So is
what
it
we're,
in the drinking water then?
No, none of the plume is used as drinking water.
we
and
don't want
most-
it to go in the deep aquifer, and that.
Yeah,
and
we
it's
don't.
not-
Yeah. Excuse me.
Oh, it's in the shallow portion of the aquifer then.
Well,
It's
Yeah.
drinking water's deeper. Okay.
Yes.
we have two pools of water. We have a perched aquifer, and then we have a deep water aquifer. And so we pull our drinking water out of the deep water aquifer, and the perched aquifer that's up on top is what's been used for agricultural purposes for the last 125 years.
Yeah, it's real common practice. It's common to see that drinking water wells are oftentimes screened pretty deep. I'm talking about contaminants between 150, 200 feet down. A lot of your drinking water wells in the valley are screened 800, 900, 1200 feet down.
It sticks in my mind, and I'm sure Eric can tell us that there's about 500 to 700 feet of alluvial deposit between where this contamination is and where our drinking water's coming from.
I can't, I don't know exactly that, but yes, that Kyle was right. Our drinking water wells typically are screened several hundred feet below the lowest of this contamination.
And Eric, while we're mentioning that, I think the only thing that's ever been a drinking water well has been the one that was right at the corner at Cooper and Guadalupe, and that was taken out of production, right?
Yeah, we don't use that one very often. It is used occasionally, but not very often.
Yeah, and even that close to the plume, I would doubt you would even be able to detect, even trace
Oh,
contaminants.
we've certainly never had any.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I couldn't even foresee. Yeah, I would say you're pretty safe on that.
Hey, Kyle, if I can just break in, one thing I want to mention, as far as the depth sampling that you've done before, you say there was something maybe in the P-wrap or the rod. I can pull that out and send that to the cab within the next week or so. And
Yeah,
then
I just don't have it memorized. I'm sorry.
yeah, right. So anything that, you can't pull out of your head tonight, but don't worry, I'll get that to you guys, within the next week or so. And any other information, we don't necessarily have to wait for the next cab meeting. It depends on what it is. We can get it to you in one of our updates. So we will get you guys the stuff you've been talking about. Just want to make sure you knew that.
And I'm speaking for everybody without having spoken to anybody about it. I appreciate the fact that you're willing to send that stuff out to us.
Me too, Barb. It takes all the work off my shoulder.
Why we're here.
Just have to get it to her. So,
Yeah, it's true.
This is true.
But yeah, none of this is hard to do. I just don't have it in my brain at the moment.
Yeah. And honestly, I know you're not done, Kyle, but I want to mention this too before I forget. Eric, you mentioned something like earlier about, I'm not sure if the cab can offer our opinion or say this or whatever. Absolutely. That's why we're here. That's why we're having the meetings. That's why you guys are board members. We absolutely want to hear your opinions on what's going on and what you think might be good for the future, or asking questions about it. I mean, that is why we have meetings. In the future, we I know it's been, oh gosh, I guess 2 years since the last meeting. We're shooting for at most a year in the future. We can always have a meeting, in a shorter interval if need be. But I do try to get you the updates at least quarterly in the email as to what's going on. You can always ask questions about that. But yeah, definitely we want to hear your suggestions for sure. So there's no question about that. That was it. You can resume, Kyle.
Okay. Well, I don't have anything else really. Except if there's more questions. Oh, this is my little figure showing you kind of where we're looking for the new well. And then this is the bulk of where those extra monitoring wells we're gonna look at lie. And
Well-
then you guys have already been doing this, but I'm ready for more if you got them.
Well, I just want to express the opinion that I don't want us to stop until I don't have to worry about there being a headline and being embarrassed that we didn't do enough to work on the problem. I don't want to be 80 or 85 and seeing something in the damn paper and saying the people in the paper are quoting saying, well, why didn't those guys way back when work on this thing and solve the problem? Let's just keep going.
Yeah, I think the trick is really this site, what it boils down to is long-term monitoring. It's just, like I said earlier, there's just the science is not there as to how to get that individual molecules of this stuff out when you've only got, 17 per, billion. That's the most we see, the high concentration. We got our 22 out of every billion molecules is one of these. So we just don't have the science to get it out. So I think what we need to do is just not take our eye off the ball. If it's still there, we need to watch it. We need to do that efficiently so no one ever pulls the plug on us and says we cost too much money for not enough yield, because it is important, and it's important to keep doing this and to do it right. And I think stepping back and just, evaluating every single well out there, every 5 years or so, is not a bad idea. It will cost a little more money, but it's dotting I's and crossing T's. And I also believe adding that one additional well to this monitoring well network will make it a more robust effort to keep an eye on this as it goes in the future, as time progresses.
Yeah, and I know you guys all know this very well, but DEQ plans to keep on with the plan, provided we get our funding every year. And we can only sort of get an idea of that every couple of years. New administrations bring new priorities, but it's looking good for now. So as long as we have the DEQ has the money, yes, we'll be out there until it's done.
Acer and I have long memories from way back when it was threatened to be cut off once before and we were able to head it off at the pass.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That was a tough one. I mean, guys, and if worse comes to worse, I can go out there and do this stuff myself, and I can get it done pretty cheap. I know how to do this. Actually, your new project manager, Adam Nagel, he's the guy who taught me. So he was the one who took me out there and taught me how to groundwater sample many years ago at a private consulting firm. So that's the.
Well, and I think as long as if we're being smart about it and we realize, what can work and, what we shouldn't waste money on. I mean, that's always an easier sell to say, look, we're to this point. We've got it where it needs to be. This is what the whole point of the WQARF program, right? Is to do these things. And so we're on a cost-effective basis. We can keep moving forward. And and there's the funds that we fought so hard for before, right? For more things, for might be better served at other sites, but let us have the funding that we need to put a well in every once in a while, to to do some pulse treating every once in a while, to monitor, and that's the whole point, right? You don't stop, right, and then have to pick up all the pieces later again.
That's right. Yeah, that's the exact same attitude as getting in there. If you know about it early, take care of it early. It's along the same track, the same good mindset to have with this kind of stuff. Don't give up on it. Don't bury your head in the sand. That's an attitude that you should definitely take with these. I gotta say, I feel like this cab could probably give the cab presentations better than I can. I will say that right now. I don't know if you guys actually need me here. If I send you the slides and you guys get together online and look at them, I feel like you could probably nail it. So yeah.
We appreciate having state employees that are doing their jobs in a way that help us stay informed. We appreciate that very much.
Assuming you're talking about me, thank you.
Well,
Don't
over the-
underestimate your skills there, Kyle.
Right.
We appreciate you.
over the years, we've had a lot of people that have worked hard from ADEQ on this project, and we appreciate that. So
I'll let Scott know you guys say hi.
Yeah, every single one from the beginning, right? I think Scott Goodwin, and then there's been other people besides Barbara too, but
Yeah.
you know, I think people have worked hard. It's good.
And in case you guys at ADEQ aren't aware, one of our former cab members is now serving on the Gilbert Town Council.
Ooh, they can help me get access agreements.
You guys will be glad to know. I mean, yeah, the people involved with this site, you're right, have been really involved. I know everybody that I know in our section works really well, works really hard to keep the public involved. But our new director, as of the beginning of this year, one of her priorities is transparency with the community, outreach, involvement, engagement. So she's making a real push to make that happen in all other sections of the agency as well. WARF has always been pretty good about keeping people involved and notified, but hopefully that will carry through the rest of the agency with our new director. Really happy about that.
So, and I will say, speaking of full transparency, I do have the tiniest fear. So we never, as you mentioned earlier, this dashed line on our plume. I am a tiny bit afraid when we put our new well in out here, it might be such that we redraw the plume to make it look like it's grown, which it wouldn't have grown. It would just be we discovered it was bigger than we thought. I don't think that's going to happen, but the possibility does exist that it extends farther than anyone ever thought. The same thing has happened when we installed all these wells. These were all supposed to be clean when we put them in 6 years ago, but turned out the plume was just bigger than anyone had suspected. And that possibility does still exist with these the new well. And if it happens, we'll move out further and do it again. But I don't anticipate that, but I want to let you know that that is my secret fear. So not that it changes anything. It would just be we know more about the plume. It wouldn't be we made it bigger or anything, or it grew. It's just we now know more about it. So
well, as you continue to think about that, just keep in mind that there was another groundwater contaminant site up in the 1990s up on Baseline Road. That's northwest, right up in there.
that's it. That's called the South Mesa WQARF site. That one is honestly, I know a little bit about that one. Actually, funny story. I don't know. You guys got the time. Sorry,
Kyle, you can't really talk about that site.
Well, I can talk about this site. I think this will be okay. So what Cooper and Commerce done is we groundwater sample at the exact same time as the next site up there. And we do that so we can get a nicer, like, holistic idea of how the groundwater is moving. That's why we have such a big map when you look at how the groundwater in the area behaves. It's because we're combining those two sites. So we're kind of, when we take our snapshot with our data gathering, we're stepping back and taking a bigger snapshot. So we actually found a way to incorporate, to kind of merge the data from the two and get a better idea of what's happening regionally, which is kind of nice.
Good. I like that.
Yeah, but that's right. After the public meeting ends, if you guys want, I can give you an update on that South Mesa.
No. Not as a cab. No, you can't. Not as a cab.
After the cab meeting ends. After the meeting.
No,
I can't. Oh.
No, not when a majority of cab members are present. No, you can't.
Oh, all right. Well, I guess we all go individually for a beer at some point, and I'll tell you then.
But
We can talk about it. We can put it on a future agenda to talk about the.
That's what I was gonna say, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we can say, let's talk about the intersection of the two, things and whatever.
And it's also information that Barb could send to us.
Yeah. Or you know what you could do? Just Google that one and take a look at what the plume looks like.
we have any more questions on the presentation itself tonight or anything else? Anybody in the room, so to speak, have any questions? Nope. Okay, and if you think of something while we go through the rest of the agenda items, just pipe up with it. Thank you, Kyle.
Yep. Last thing, I will let you guys know I'm being taken off most of my project management duties to go on to do work on a technical working group for the department. So Adam Nagel will be taking this site over for me. Adam and I have been friends for over a decade and worked together. This is our second job we've actually worked together in. So I'll be there as a resource for him for the foreseeable future. Just wanted to let you guys know, and you're in good hands with Adam. He's a nice guy and a heck of a geologist. All right,
Thank
Barb.
you, Kyle.
I don't know about
You're
all
welcome.
that. Don't make my head that big, all right, bud.
All right, sorry, man. All right.
Okie doke. All right, there we go. Let's just take a look at the agenda. I believe next we need to talk about the charter. So let me pull that up for you guys. I don't know if you got a chance to look at it, but we do have some changes that we need to make. Pull it up. Hold on. There we go. Okay. Hopefully you guys can see that. Try to make it a little bigger. We had a couple of small changes to the charter that I'm suggesting, and you guys can decide whether you want these changes. Don't have to do them. And if you do, we'll take a vote. The main thing that we need to change, I think it was early last year, it might have been the year before, we had a change in the way the statute is written for community advisory boards. It used to say that community advisory boards have to meet 4 times a year. And then we kind of changed that sort of unofficially to saying we'll meet as often as the data requires. But it was officially changed in statute to say, and it's this exact wording that I put in the charter. So instead of saying the cab shall meet, this is section 4D in the charter, instead of saying the cab shall meet at least 4 times per year with ADQ, I've changed it to read as the statute now says, which is in response to site activities or a request from a cab board member or a city, town, or county in which the site is located, meet with the department and any identified responsible parties to receive site briefings, progress reports, and other pertinent information. So basically it says we will meet whenever anybody wants to meet. Period. That's basically what that means. So that's the first suggested change. Does anyone have any questions about that and what it means? Oh, okay. And
Well,
then yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was a little late there.
That's okay.
But we will have a meeting at least once a year.
Yes. So we are shooting to have a meeting at least once a year. However, we can have it more often if anybody requests it, whether it's you guys or a city or the county or pretty much anybody. Then we can have a meeting at any time. Our baseline is a minimum of once a year.
Okay.
But I hesitate to put that we do it, I hesitate to put that we in the charter that we will for sure meet once per year, because sometimes, 20 years down the road, once per year might not be really necessary, if the data doesn't change much.
Well, then we can change the charter at that time, right?
Yeah, you could. So we could amend this further and leave it as is and say the cab shall meet once per year, or take out the in and say or in response. Well, we leave the in, or in response to site activities, blah, blah, blah. So I can add that at the beginning. The can say cab will meet once per year.
Or in
Or
response.
in response. Do you like that?
Or maybe just say, it's like the language you deleted out. Just say the cab, shall meet at least once per year, comma, or more often in response to, or you don't even have to say more often, or in responses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would still leave the language from the statute because that makes it very clear. So we can say the cab shall meet.
I think it's what it said before up there, right? Shall
Yeah.
meet at least once per year.
Meet at least once per year.
And
Or
then-
in response to da da da.
Yeah, and then maybe just uncapitalize in.
Right, yeah.
And I think that's fine.
Highlight this so I know what I added.
Our lawyer recommends it. That's good enough for me.
Me too.
Okay, so we good on that change?
Yes, I am. Mike, yay. Pacer,
Yay.
all right.
Okay, so the rest of the changes are really minor ones. Section G, let's see, I think that's 4G. It talks about, it says a copy of the CAB meeting minutes will be sent to all CAB members and distributed at CAB meetings. The meeting minutes will also be available for public review in the site information repositories. And I added the words and the ADQ website because we put the minutes on the website.
Very good.
That's fine.
I should say normally we do. I don't know if you all have seen our website lately. Something happened to it and they have to rebuild it. So actually right now it's very hard to find the meeting materials. They're there. It's just kind of hard to find, but that's a situation that they're working on and will change. So I
Maybe
suggest,
put and/or. That way,
yeah,
if
we
someone
can't.
says,
Well, yeah, but we can't say or because that leaves the possibility that it would only be on the website and not in the repositories.
well, but the problem now is you just explained a situation where someone could say, hey, it's not on the website.
It's there. It's just very hard to find. It's there.
Okay. As long as you can find it, as long as it's there. I thought
It's
if
there.
the
Yeah.
whole thing's crashed and shut down, then you don't have a.
It's
you're
it's all
making-
there. It's just you have to go through a lot of back doors to find it. So
Okay.
I shouldn't
All
even
right.
mention it. It is there. Okay, so we okay with that change?
And so I just wanted to check while we're talking about this. It sticks in my mind that our repository has been the Southeast Regional Library and the town clerk's office. Am I correct?
Well, according to this, it was changed at some point and I'd have to look at when, but at some point it was changed so that the two repositories are online and at our records center. We kind of started phasing out the local repositories when the internet, became proficient at making this stuff available. So yeah, that's no longer an official repository. It was changed at some point.
Okay. I have a file drawer and a half of it too as a repository.
You what?
I have a file drawer and a half.
Okay. Okay, so the next change is the next section. It's 4H. I simply added, it says CAB members may be asked to review and comment on various environmental remediation documents. CAB members may make verbal at a CAB meeting or written comments to ADQ on the subject documents within the period specified for review. It added the sentence, ADQ will ensure that a written response is provided to the CAB members in a timely manner. I just added that because it's kind of standard language we have in other charters. If you don't like it, I can remove it. But
Good for me.
It's fine.
And then the last change is section 4I, just a cleanup on the website address. The repositories are located online. I changed the website address to be more readable. Instead of saying a node address, it actually says cooper.commerce for the address. And I took out an extension. We no longer have extensions at DEQ. So those are just kind of administrative cleanups. Does anybody have a problem with those? Okay. Okay, so those are the changes that I suggest. It sounds like we're all okay with them.
Move
If
to
we
approve.
I second it.
Who was that? Sorry.
Carrie.
Carrie, I second it. My
All
dinner's
right.
waiting.
And all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
I
Great. Righty, awesome. Okay. Go back to the agenda real quick. We're almost done. Oops.
God, we gotta
There we
vote
go.
on leadership again.
Yeah, sorry. We have to do it every meeting because we have to do it every year. And it's been a couple years, but every meeting from now on, if we meet once a year, we have to re-elect our co-chair holders. So we can keep with the same co-chairs that we have for a while. I believe is it Mike and Pacer? Or if anybody else would like to be a co-chair, now's your time to put your hand up and say you'd like to do it. Do I hear
I
anybody?
nominate the same chair and co-chair.
I'm not saying that I would like to do it. What I'm saying is I really appreciate Pacer and Mike. I believe in them. I trust their Pacer for his legal expertise, Mike for his scientific expertise.
Agreed.
Michael and Pacer, are you guys okay being co-chairs again?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
No, that's fine. I'll endeavor to be more responsive to you, Barbara.
Oh, no, it's fine. It's fine.
Do we get a button or something when we've done it for 20 years?
Hey,
We'll get you a trophy.
I tell you what, when we have our next in-person meeting, very suddenly DEQ has decided to buy some really cool swag stuff. Not to, really useful things. So I will bring some to the next meeting. Because you guys are a great cab. You guys are easily my best cab.
20 years, I think you get cut. I think you get cut into the state pension, don't you, Barb?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll
I'm
do
already-
that when they hand it off to their grandkids.
Yeah.
Maybe we can name a monitoring well after Mike and one after Pacer.
Well,
P
they're all,
well,
yeah.
the M well.
Yeah.
All right. Well, back to the issue. I would need a motion to nominate Mike and Pacer as continuing co-chairs, a second, and then a vote.
I think Eric did make that motion.
Oh, he
already.
did. Okay.
So moved. So moved.
And who made the second? Anybody make a second?
I second it.
All right. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome.
And Barbara, you did realize that Anne joined us somewhere during the
I
meeting.
did. Yeah, I saw that. I didn't want to. Okay, this is the time for the call to the public. We do have one member of the public here. Is there anybody else in the room that wants to say anything, have any questions or comments on the presentation or the meeting in general? Or do you guys?
Just a quick question. SRP has been attending our meetings. Are they still being read in on everything?
Yeah. Yep. They've had some personnel changes, I think, but they still get notified of the meetings, and yeah. I don't know how often.
Karis is no longer with them.
Yeah.
And that's who used to come to the meetings.
So future CAB meeting agenda discussion. We've already talked about the meeting. We're going to hopefully do that once a year. And we've talked about a couple things maybe on the agenda. I mean, we can talk about the adjacent site next time if you'd like. I would say that anytime you guys think of anything that you would like on the agenda, shoot me an email. We'll get it on there. And as soon as I type up the minutes for this meeting, I'm going to also send it to you guys while it's fresh in your mind. So if there's anything I misrepresented or missed in general, you can let me know so that next year you won't have to struggle to remember what we talked about, because you'll see it right now. But is there anything else that I'm missing that anybody can think they might want on the next agenda?
Well, we talked about the and I think that Kyle mentioned the cartoon.
Cumulative mass removal.
Yeah.
And like a side view, a profile view to show the depth of the plume. I have those two items noted.
Yeah, I do too, actually.
Okay, excellent.
Anything else? All right, and then I'll still be sending you guys the quarterly email updates. Feel free to reach out to me or Kyle or Adam as Adam takes over anytime you guys have questions or concerns. Anybody have anything else?
No.
I want to say thank you to all of you guys for attending. Like I said, you guys are the best cab I have. You guys are responsive and you show up and you are really interested in the site. And I really, really appreciate that.
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you to the entire cab. This is, I would say this has been the best cab that I've gotten to be a project manager for, as far as engagement. You guys really know the site, and you're proactive and interested in how it comes out, and you're trying to get the right thing done. And you really made it a joy to. It's one of the few cabs I look forward to doing. I don't consider it a chore. It's good, and you're a fun group too.
Yeah, I appreciate all the questions you guys had. You had some really good, poignant questions that we'll work on that and for the future and going forward. I look forward to meeting with you guys at least once a year doing this stuff. And if you have any questions, reach out. No problem.
And I'm still there for you too. Just because I'm off the site doesn't mean I'm not around.
No, we really appreciate it. Really, all.
Thank you. And my pleasure.
I think the group from Maricopa or from wherever, you guys have been great with us.
Thank you. Thank you, Carrie.
Okay, we will adjourn the meeting at 7:21. The meeting went from 6 p.m. to 7:21. I will adjourn the meeting here. No discussion after we stop the meeting, Kyle. We are done discussing the site for the evening.
Everyone must click leave, right?
Yes. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate
Bye.
it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Stay on.
Okay.